everybody, welcome to Jerry's Live. As always, I'm your host, Amy Gardner-Dean. We are back. I appreciate everybody's concern and also sticking with us while we had that rerun last week. I had some just travel issues with moving my son to grad school in Ohio, and so they were kind enough to rerun an episode that talked about abstract since that was the contest this week. We thought it would be a fitting show, and because that was Joe DiGiulio, who Ophelia had been talking about on our last live show. So just trying to hit all the bases, the relevant information. So thank you guys for being patient and cool with me being out last week. This week we've got episode JL165. We are doing, well, I guess primaries. We've picked yellow today. And we've talked before about how important the primaries are to mix, but it's not just red and yellow make orange and yellow and blue make green. There's much more to it. It's much more cryptic and strange, but the more you know about the pigments that you use in your paint, and what the opacity is, just what the kind of performance is overall of the pigment that actually makes the paint, the easier it will be to kind of decode good mixing skills. So, so we're going to be going through yellow today using Charvin acrylics, and we've even picked some kind of more natural yellows. And then I've got a black here, so we're going to talk about how maybe we can make some of these colors into more natural greens just by adding a little bit of black. And we'll talk about kind of the nature of black. We've picked the one black that they've got in the line that's kind of the most neutral black, and it's in actually a few of these colors as it is. So, so we're gonna get started in a minute. Now, we've got a fun episode coming up September 8th. We are doing a timed drawing game. And I know a lot of people are always kind of like, drawing is where they feel a little panicky. This is something that I would really love it if everybody would participate in. We'll actually have just a little kitchen timer. It's a game that we kind of developed when we were all out on quarantine, and we did a show out of my home, just I think on a Sunday, and everybody loved it and had fun, and some people drew along. So I thought, what better way than it's actually the closest Tuesday to my birthday. So what better way to try to make you feel guilty and participate than, don't you want to do it for Amy's birthday? There's a little tear. She would really like you to participate. So, so again, that's September 8th. So I'm just letting you know now, so you can put it on your calendar. That cart is JL167, I believe now, because we've moved the episodes. That's just it's got pencils and a sketchbook. If you've got those items at home, you need nothing from Jerry's, unless you really want that set that we've got. You can already play along. It's already free. You should do it. So, and I'm going to remind you again later and make you feel guilty just the same. So, if you are interested in any of these colors, or would like to know more about the Charvin acrylic line, either during this broadcast or at the end, you can go to the jerrysartarama.com website. You can type in keyword JL165. That will pull up all these colors. The only thing we've got different is it's like an understudy, a stand-in, if you will. We were out of the Cadmium Yellow Light Genuine on the website. We had a Cadmium Yellow Light Golden here, so we're doing a stand-in for that, just so we can talk about that pigment, because it's going to be the same pigment number. It should have the same performance. So it'll give us kind of a way to still look at that color with a stand-in. So, all right, so let's get going on this, just because we've got a lot of ground to cover. Katie, I'm going to ask you a weird question when you get a chance, if you get a chance. If not, it's no big deal. I don't have a titanium white. I thought that I put it over here, and I think I looked at it and then did not. So if you can grab one for me, I would appreciate that. All right, so we're going to start with just, we've kind of got these in order. Thank goodness, thank you. Thank goodness we have Amanda, that is our moderator for Facebook, because she has much cleaner writing than I do, with my fingers still kind of swollen and icky. So, so she's written this, so it's very easy to see. Thank you, Amanda. And we will go with this. You said that we need to keep this kind of right in the middle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yes, that would be great. Because we want to focus on the color so people can really see what it is. We're perfect. All right, what it is we're talking about. Okay, so we're going to start with the lemon yellow. Now, pigment numbers, we've talked about this before. If you're new to our show, pigment numbers are always going to be on the tube itself. This has, the wrapper kind of comes around it. It's got two pigments in it. It's got PY74 and it also has PY83. Okay, we're going to talk about those in just a minute. Here, see this little kind of square? It's a little hard to see with that shiny gold label. It is showing you that it's semi-opaque. It's split in half. It's got one of those triangles of the square filled in. That means semi-opaque. It also has the light fastness. There are three little kind of plus signs over here. That's saying that it's very good light fastness, all right? 1 is excellent with them, 2 is good or very good, 3 is good, and then there's, if it was fugitive, you'd have that. All right, so I'm gonna put this out and we're gonna talk about it just because it's nice to see a little bit of color. And yes, people are going to complain that it's excessive, that we're using this much. This is so you can see what it is that I'm talking about. All right, so PY74 is Pigment Yellow 74. That is an aerolide yellow, but it's a specific one. It's 5GC. You don't have to worry about what that means. It's that variation of that aerolide yellow. It's different than some of the, and aerolide is also known as azo, different things. We'll talk about that in just a second, but that is the definition for this specific pigment, the PY74. Other ones that are made with azo are going to be different pigment numbers, all right? Now, this pigment is used in the following types of colors it comes up. So so look at your colors at home that you may have in oil or acrylics. You may have this in your house and not even know that you've got this specific pigment. It's used in colors like the aerolides, the azos, brilliant yellows, cadmium yellow hues, chrome yellows, permanent yellows, Hansa yellows, in brand names where it's like something yellow. One of those is Windsor yellow. Okay, and some of the Indian yellow hues, it's actually used as either the pigment or one of the pigments in it. Now keep in mind that depending on how this is processed, whether it's heated, whether it's cooled, there's all sorts of different variations where they can take that pigment powder or that pigment as they're making it and do things to it to make it darker, to make it lighter. So this is this specific variation. Not all of them necessarily will be the same, but at least you know what the pigment is, and it's a closer way to match something and maybe a color that you love, that brand is out, and you can start looking at those pigment numbers in other yellows and other brands if you need something like now, okay? So the chemical compound of the PY74 is monoazo, aerolide, and aerolamide. It is a bright mid to greenish yellow. So we're going to pull some of that out so you can see. See in the mass tone, it's nice and bright. Nice, bright. You can kind of see those green undertones, can't you? It's not as super, like the cadmium lemon yellow, we'll see is a little bit greener, but this is still for, you know, a non-cadmium pigment. This is why they use it a lot for cad yellow hues, is because it's got a nice kind of the zing of what a cadmium lemon would be. Now, depending on the pigment and how it's done, the opacity may be anywhere from 2 to 4, which like this color, when these two pigments are added together, is a semi-opaque, but it can be anywhere from a semi-transparent all the way to a transparent color, okay? The light fastness also, depending on what it is for that pigment alone, can range from 1 to 3, all right? Good primary yellow for mixing. Now, the light fastness is not considered as good if you use it in tints or in transparent versions, but that's that pigment alone, and that depends on your medium. It's going to be different in oils as acrylics, as watercolors. And some of these, like, you won't see, there are some azos in oil, but you won't see them. It's more rare, okay? Azos are a lot more predominant in acrylics, your Hansas and stuff like that. You notice how you have oils at home, you don't have a Hansa in your oils? It's because these work better with the acrylic binder and produce better light fastness typically with acrylics versus oils. So that's why with some, you'll have a favorite color in oils and you absolutely can't get it in acrylics or watercolors because maybe the light fastness is absolutely horrible or it just does not work with the binder, okay? All right. So then the other color that's in this, the other pigment is PY83, which is a Darylide Yellow, HR. Again, another version of it. That pigment is used in colors like Azo Deeps, Benzidine Yellows, Cadmium Yellow Deep Hues, Cadmium Yellow Oranges, Dialoride Yellows, Gamboge Extra. That is one that there is in Old Holland oils. And I'm telling you because I love that color and I know what pigment is in it. Indian Yellow Hues and Permanent Yellow Deeps. And it's made from a diazo, which is a diarylide and benzidine condensation. So if you've ever heard us talk about Stack White from Michael Harding, it's kind of that same thing. We talked about that on our white and black episode. The PY83 is a light to a deep yellow with a reddish undertone. So you've got something that's a little bit cooler pigment, something that's a little warmer pigment. You can kind of see a little of that if you're very color temperature sensitive in this. So that, the PY83, good staining with good tinting strength, slight darkening in mass tones. Same thing where it fades a little bit in tints, but that's just, it's not as strong of a yellow kind of against your whites, okay? So nice pretty color, nice pretty mass tone. Let's see if we take that and, I mean, you can see it's pretty semi-opaque, you know? So that's a very strong staining because pulling that little bit across that I just picked up really has colored that canvas board with a very thin little coat. All right. So that's their lemon yellow. And keep in mind, we've talked about this before, just because it's called lemon yellow and Charvin makes it out of those two pigments does not mean this is going to be the same in Winsor Newton. This is going to be the same in Sennelier. This is going to be the same in any other, in Soho, any other brand, because it's just a trade name using specific pigments to give an overall kind of average mass tone of what a lemon yellow would be. All right, and I'm sorry for those of you that are going, I thought this was a very exciting demonstration. Now you're making me learn. I am. So, all right, just, you know, to clarify. Can't always be fun. You got to learn so then you grow as an artist. All right, so Hansa Yellow Medium. This is a beautiful color. We can see here PY74, PY83. Look at that. Same pigments.
We had some people notice already.
See, you're learning. Amy's making you. It's a glorious day. So we've got the exact same pigments in these two, and that's why I took a little bit longer to talk about them, because it's important that you see there is a huge color difference here. See how much more almost like a sunflowery yellow this is. How do they do that? Well, it can be through different things. These pigments can be heat treated differently. This can be, you know, a lot more, just how we've talked about, like with ingredients in a store, the grocery store. Whatever you have the most of is the first ingredient listed, right? And cereals and your dog food, whatever, the first ingredient listed has the most of whatever it is. So just because these are lined up the same way, this may have like 7/8 of the PY74 and an eighth of the 83, and, you know, vice versa over here, just that's a little bit more, right? Not vice versa, but that's a little bit more. But see how it's a big, huge difference? Now, it may not, well, I think that on the monitor, looks like I can see that. See how in mass tone, where it's solid here, it's much redder? but where I pulled that across, see how it's got a little bit of green in that thinner part? It looks greener just there. It looks redder on those edges. So in mass tone, that's going to be redder than this color. But when it's thinned down, if you're doing washes and things like that, yes.
Can you say when you're doing it if it's a cool yellow or a warm yellow, or I know this one's kind
Yes.
of a bad one.
That's
to
what.
start
No,
on
but
there.
that's what that's what I was
Okay.
just talking about, was that this looks greener, right? Cool in that center. Towards the edges, it looks more kind of orange, right? Which is a warm color, which is going to be more like towards your hot colors, okay? Cool is always like, think of water, think of pools, think of sunset, where it's like those deep dark colors. Hot, like the sun, you know. Okay. So now the difference between these two, series 3 for this, so they're using, because of these percentages, it's a little bit more expensive to produce this lemon color. Semi-opaque. This one is a series 2, but semi-opaque. Okay? So, it's a really good way of seeing, just because it's necessarily the same pigment numbers, it can be different, either in percentages, either in heat treatment, or whatever. All right? But you can really see that staining strength of the color there, with how bright that is. All right, French Yellow Primary. Say that 3 times fast. I feel like I should have pom-poms for it. French Yellow Primary. Okay. I'm going to keep this under here, so if anybody has questions about those, I've got that. All right, this is series 2. This is semi-transparent, and this is something that a lot of other manufacturers don't do, and something that's nice about Charvin. Most acrylic brands do not have a hand-painted swatch. In fact, does anybody else other than Charvin? Golden's as a hand-painted swatch. I don't think anybody else is. I know Liquitex isn't. I don't think Sennelier is. So, yes, but oils, more people do it. Acrylics, very few people do it. So you can really see what a thin coat of this looks like over, you can see the Charvin, right? Really can't see the Charvin. So that's a good way of kind of, without having to necessarily, well, depending on how they've got this down, I can't see the little decal over here that would show me whether this is, you know, transparent, semi-transparent, whatever. So great way to tell. It's like a cheat sheet. It's right there. All right, so series 2, semi-transparent, very good light fastness. This is not a yellow. So what do we have going on here? Pigment White 6, which is titanium white, and then our friend PY74, right, which is that Aerolide Yellow 5GC that we had over here. That's supposed to be that greener color. See how this is going to be a little bit greener? You can already see the difference between these 3, that this is much hotter than these 2 are going to be. All right, so why do they do that with the titanium white? Well, for one thing, this might be so transparent otherwise that, you know, it would be a useless color. So it may be to make it just a slight bit brighter. It might be to make it just a slight bit more, says semi-transparent. So instead of being absolutely transparent where it would be difficult to use and where it would be very weak in color mixtures, they've kind of added that to make it that much more, or that much less, I guess, transparent. All right. I'm going to move this down for just a minute so I'm not blocking it. See how this pull across with that is a little brighter than that? That's actually a little bit weaker from that PY83. So this is a pretty strong color that we're looking at. Very, in mass tone, it's a little bit more medium than this. This is a little kind of cooler, but that's really nice. It's not giving you kind of the complexity that this color is, but it's giving you some punch, right? So, so that really kind of just helps make that color that much brighter. Now, something to think about when you're mixing, this is still luckily a semi-transparent. the more transparent your colors, the cleaner the refraction is going to be for mixing. The more opaque your colors are, the quicker it starts looking, some people call it muddy or just dull. It just doesn't have that brilliance of color. Like, think of phthalo blue or phthalo green. How Katie gets like, ah! How just that color is just like vibrates, and it's got this just depth and this just kind of gorgeous beauty. That's because it's more transparent. Think of something like if you're comparing a phthalo green to like an oxide green or you know, a chrome green, something like that. It's much more matte. It's much more flat. Very different. It's a green, but it's the difference between that very opaque color and a much more transparent color. So mixing more transparent colors together are going to give you that depth and that brightness. This is still nice and bright, even with that little bit of white to kind of temper it. So, and remember, the number first is what you got the most of, right? So that pigment packs a pretty powerful punch if it's got that white there. All right. Whoop. Chartreuse, yet another kind of trade name. Did I do, wait, stop, hold the phone. French yellow primary. No, we did that. Did I put the wrong color there? I am so sorry. This is supposed to be the French yellow primary here. I mixed those two. I thought I had them lined up. So we're gonna, yes, Sharpie, please. Sharpie, please. Just so, because we don't want this to be confusing. And it already is. It's too late. All right, while you're getting that, I'm gonna put the Chartreuse out. It's called a diversion. Look at this beautiful color. All right. So Amy that hasn't had enough coffee today, this is this one. And I'll take a picture of this and put it in the Jerry's Live Facebook group after, so that we make sure that we there. So we make sure we know which is which, okay? That was not a very good mistake. All right, let's double check these before we put them out next time. Chartreuse is right. Okay. So Chartreuse is a lovely, yummy, everybody kind of knows it as that, not even spring green. It's like a celadon, or, I mean, what other, yeah.
It's beautiful, but
I love it because it's a green with a nice, really red undertone. So we've got Series 2. It's opaque. To me, it's a little less opaque. It's more like a semi-opaque, because you can, if you put a thin thing like that, you can see kind of that red undertone where you can't see it in the mass tone. So to me, that's not 100% opaque, because you would not be able to see that kind of undercolor otherwise. Excellent light fastness. It's got the Pigment White 6, which is your titanium white. It's got our little friend, their Acrylic Yellow, that's been so far in all these colors. So that's what it's getting kind of that neat green kind of brightness out of. But then it's got PB29. Anybody want to take a guess as to what that is? Bueller. It's blue, PB. Or excuse me, you know what? I may have written it down wrong. For PB29 is ultramarine, but our website has it listed as PB28.
There you go.
They do the first one on this, and not all of them. It's actually Cobalt Blue.
Oh, really?
It is Cobalt Blue, and Cobalt Blue, for the most part, can be a you know what? Maybe this is okay. No. It's because these are front and back, and I'm getting very confused. Cobalt Blue is a cobalt illuminate blue spinel, and it's a greenish to a mid shade of blue. Everybody loves Cobalt Blue. Think about KitchenAid mixers. That's like the quintessential Cobalt Blue, right? Everybody has seen that color on something like that before. It was very popular for forever, right? Just that little bit of blue makes this beautiful green. And obviously it's the third number, right? So it's going to be just a touch of it put in there. But it's still got enough kind of that hot undertone from it, this being this brighter kind of greeny yellow, where it's just a really, really nice color. And you can see there with the label, you can still see the Charvin, but it's covered up a lot more with a really thin, yes.
Lindsay had a question.
Sure.
She said she doesn't see the red undertone in the Chartreuse. Can you explain?
Okay, so you're not going to, mass tone means this thicker area, right, that we've got going on here. In this kind of undertone, which is kind of the, if you're doing it as a thin wash or whatever, it's a warmer shade of green. It's not like a true, yes, it is yellow green, but it's got a little bit of red to it. And it's really, the issue with this show is your monitor's set differently than our cameras are set differently than my monitor that I watch the show on differently. So it's something where, and this is why we talk to you guys about swatching your colors like this, to be able to see this, is that in real time, in real person, it's going to be much easier to see the true nature of the color. Because this is filmed with, you know, I mean, high quality, you know, filming studio cameras, it still doesn't always, colors don't always catch because colors are so specific. And everybody's eyes are a little bit different. Everybody's got a little bit of a different balance of rods and cones. So you're just going to have to, if you can't see it, I'm sorry. And you're just going to have to trust me on it, that it's got that little bit of kind of a reddish under. But the thing is, it's so like electric yellow, green, and then a little bit of that reddish undertone. I think that's why it makes it such a beautiful and successful color, is it's very alive, isn't it? It's very electric. So, so that's what that one is made out of. So, and I'm not going to go in, since we've done the blues with the Cobalt Blue, I'm not going to go into the Cobalt Blue as much, because this is a show about yellow. But if anybody has any questions, just grab those. Okay, Katie? Mm-hmm. All right. So Cadmium Yellow Light Genuine. We're sneaking this in. Anytime it says genuine, which not all brands do this, they'll just say hue if it's not genuine. But it's something that, depending on the country that the paint is made, some countries are starting to require different things to denote that it's a pigment that's potentially, you know, toxic, especially in the water stream, you know, water table for rinsing and stuff like that. So this is where you want to be really careful what you do with your water when you're using cadmiums and cobalts and stuff. Golden does theirs differently. Instead of being genuine like Charvin does, they put CP, cadmium pigment, before the color name, and then cadmium yellow light. That's how you know that it is indeed a cadmium pigment for their colors. So anything that's a true cadmium yellow is going to be PY35, whether it is a light, whether it is a deep, whether it is a lemon yellow. That's why, and when you see cadmium, it's always going to mean that it's that same pigment. But we're going to talk about what the differences are in that in just a second. Let's put some of this out. See, that's light, so it's got some, in these thin areas that I've got, it's got some green undertone. Now, when she asked about the being able to see the red, like the warms and the cools, right? Where this, and we've done a number of different shows on this, so I don't want to focus like exclusively on this. You're going to have to go back and just look at these and, you know, listen for what we've said, cool or warm. If you want to make a really excellent green, you're going to want a cool yellow, either a mid-tone yellow that doesn't look warm or cool, that's just kind of yellow, right? But to make a much more successful one, you actually want to use, like, this would be a great one for a green. That lemon yellow would be a great one for a green. The French yellow primary would be a good mid-range yellow that would probably do all right with oranges and greens, because it's kind of, if somebody puts primary on there, guess what? That's your cheat sheet for that. It works pretty well with both your warm and cool mixes, okay? But to make a really kicking green, you want something that is going to have that cooler undertone. So it'll say light, a yellow light, a lemon yellow, okay? That's kind of your code word, if you will, for, okay, this will work great for a green. Now, in the flip side of that, if you wanted something to mix and make a great orange, obviously that Hansa Yellow Medium, see how already it's kind of almost a yellow orange in and of itself, right? So that's gonna make a really nice orange. You may not have to add a lot of red to that if you're gonna do it, because it's already got a lot of kind of that look of orange there. You would not have to, if you took these two colors and you mixed the same red with them, you would not have to mix as much of this to get a bright yellow or a bright orange as you would this, because this is already on that orange kind of side, right? A much warmer yellow, okay? Now with the cadmiums, we're gonna just cover this really quick. This, depending on how much is in each one, there will be different series. The actual Charvin one that we had was a series 5 for the yellow genuine. Okay, cadmiums are generally opaque, semi-opaque to opaque, but it's a pretty good rule of thumb that they're the more opaque of your paints. PY35 is cadmium yellow. The pigment is used in all of the cadmiums, whether it's light, pale, lemon, medium, deep. Primrose yellow, you'll see these guys do a primrose yellow cadmium, so it'll say CI primrose yellow. That's a cadmium. Some of the cadmium oranges actually still use this pigment. They don't use an orange pigment. Just depending on how it's treated, it can make it a lot more red. Some just regular colors that are called lemon will actually have cadmium yellow in it. And that's something to keep an eye on if you're concerned for your health, or you've got little children or pets that tend to get in your paint. Always check your lemon paints to make sure it doesn't have a true cadmium in it. Cadmium yellow is an inorganic, which is a cadmium zinc sulfide. Okay, the ranges of this pigment, like we said, go from very green yellow all the way to a deep reddish yellow. It's always good opacity. It's always going to be your best light fastness as well. Good tinting strength. It is staining, and it will, if you're using watercolor with it, that's the only thing about cadmiums. You don't see a lot of cadmium yellows in watercolor. Some manufacturers do make it. They do darken because it doesn't have that binder to kind of help protect that color. All right, so that's a cadmium. We'll see some of these other ones in a minute. We're gonna real quick look at cadmium yellow deep.
I actually have a very good question.
Yeah.
That goes just along with that.
Perfect.
Diane was asking on YouTube, when they have lemon light, for example, does that mean it has less pigment? How do they make it light?
When they say light, it's not like a lower calorie drink, okay? Where it uses less sugar to make it, still the drink and taste great. It's not less pigment. It means that that's a great question, really. It means that it's going to be, with yellows, more on that green spectrum, okay? And a lighter value, typically. The deeper it goes, the value is slightly darker, the more towards the reds and oranges you're going to go. So light or lemon always means over here on the greenish edge, okay? Your darks are always going to be more, it's like it's taking that temperature and going from greens to yellows with the mediums to more of an orange with the deep colors. All right? Now, it doesn't have anything to do with the tinting, because as far as the amount of pigment in it, because what they do is they can heat pigments to alter the color, or add other chemicals in it just as they're processing it to make it different. It's not this, this one has, whatever it is that's a lemon has, you know, this much pigment and inert ingredients, and this one has this much pigment and inert ingredients. It's just that they're different. And I would speculate, since it seems like the lighter the color, the higher the series number, so the pricier, that it takes more work to produce that specific color. There's more things they have to do to monkey with it to get that color lighter. So it's something I've noticed over time with buying paints with the cadmiums and the cobalts. It seems like that it kind of, if it's lighter, it's probably more processed. Okay. All right. So this is a cadmium yellow deep hue. I'm going to push this up. So hue means that in mass tone, it's got pigments that are designed to make it look like a cadmium deep, but it does not have the cadmium in the paint. Okay. Now, so, whew, Amy almost got her own self in trouble with her own self because she did not rinse her brush. These are the synthetic mimic hog bristle brushes, so it's not regular hog hair, it's synthetic, but it's stiff like a hog hair. So, and I'm using it just because it's easy to pull a nice, mostly smooth stroke, but you can see because the hog is stiffer, it leaves a little residue on the sides and stuff. It's not like a super smooth sable, so it's easier to see kind of that color differentiation when you're looking at those undertones. All right. So that's just a really nice, almost like a cadmium orange to me. There's some cadmium orange lights that I would not, if you just told, you know, had me look at this and guess the color and it was dry, I would really assume that that was a cadmium orange or a cadmium orange hue, because it's very punch you in the throat orange. It really is. It's a dilaride yellow, which is that, look, our friend here that we've had that keeps popping up. Obviously, if that's a little bit in this, they've like dialed it down with some sort of treatment one way or the other to change the appearance of that color. It's going to give you the same performance. So if it's a good light fast color, regardless of what that you know difference is, it's going to be light fast either way. But that's why it's sometimes this can be confusing. You have to know, you know, what the color pigment is and what the performance is, and then find the brand that has it that matches the most kind of closely. We've already talked about what that's good for. If you're just joining us and you're coming in, I don't want to be go back over the PY83, kind of go back and watch the beginning afterwards, because we've already talked about it in multiple paints. But just so you know, it's in these three colors. And obviously, it's very different in each. Okay? All right. So Cadmium Yellow Deep Genuine. So this is the real deal. This is the hue. And it's the same brand. Okay? So you're going to see what can be kind of different with a hue. And keep in mind, too, that just because this is a Cadmium Yellow Light and this is a Cadmium Yellow Deep, it is not going to be the same in all brands. Different brands might be deeper or lighter, or just kind of even the value of it is slightly different. So you just need to really find a color that you think is really what you want, that you like the formulation of and the texture of the paint as well, and just kind of stick to your guns with some colors. If you're talking about burnt sienna and burnt umber and, you know, earth tones and blacks and whites, it's a lot less difficult. Like, it's going to be closer to the same spectrum than your, you know, true colors like this, especially ones that you need to mix with. See the difference in those two? Cadmium Yellow Light, PY35, PY35, or Cadmium Yellow again. Let's see how different it is. Hopefully, the viewer that was asking about the color temperature can really see the difference between these two of the same one. Much warmer, right? More like the sun, much more orange, much cooler, a little bit kind of greenier, right? Then you've got a really deep, deep. I just was trying to keep the words
Yeah.
I can do
from,
this.
that's fine. All right. We've got one more here, so I'm going to move this over. So then we've got our Cadmium Yellow Lemon. Genuine. That's genuine. So again, the PY35, it's a cadmium, but you'll see what the big difference is between the lightest here and the darkest here. Or I guess this is just kind of the mid yellow. No, this is a lemon. So it's, wow, that lemon is super vibrant. See how even, I mean, these are both vibrant, but that's even, I can really see in the, try to get this pretty thin. You can really see kind of that little, this is almost like, to me, it almost looks like that with just a little greener, with a little, it's a little bit lighter value. See how this is a little deeper? Like maybe what, 3%, 4% change?
Yeah.
And if you're not sure what I mean by that, grayscales are a really excellent thing to have to kind of hold up against paint colors. It helps you to start recognizing when paint is just in regular mass tone, what the biggest difference is. And this is hard to see here because it's shiny with the light, but this is just slightly deeper, but like slight enough where it's difficult to tell, I think, with the camera. So what would these be good for? The lemon yellow, the yellow light, or cad lemon yellow, and then the regular lemon yellow. Those would be great for making greens, right? Because being light or lemon, that means that it's cooler, right? The French yellow primary, again, cheat sheet primary, means that it would work pretty well for an orange, making an orange for your secondary, or making a green. It might not be as ideal as these other ones, but in a pinch, if you can only have one yellow, that's what you're going to want, okay? Because it can kind of help. That's why some artists will have 2 reds, they'll have 2 yellows, they'll have 2 blues, right? It's because they want a warm and a cool. Then you've got these where it's much oranger. Those are what you're going to want to use to make a really rockin' orange or a red orange, okay? Because otherwise these are going to start looking weird. You start mixing your color temperatures and things start looking weird. And you don't know why, but I can always see that in people's work when the color just doesn't look right. I'm like, oh, they used a warm temperature primary with a cool temperature primary, and those did not work right. Okay. All right. Let's do these other colors real quick. And not back into that somehow. All right. So the St. Remy Yellow. This is what, you know, we've got here, we've got Naples Yellow and Naples Yellow Deep, right? Naples Yellow is kind of a standard stock color that still is a trade color name. It doesn't mean that this is going to be the same formulation as a different brand. This doesn't mean this one's going to be the same formulation as a different brand. They're always going to look very different, potentially. I think in acrylics, the Naples Yellows tend to be way more all over the place than in oils, don't you think, Katie? Mm-hmm. It seems like Naples Yellow is more consistent color-wise. And I say that because I have this really weird thing about Naples Yellow, and I like a really kind of more of an orangey Naples Yellow. So I've noticed this over time because I use it sometimes as a more neutral, kind of a warm, natural yellow as opposed to bright yellows. And just when I switched to acrylics, I was like, what? Does no one know what a Naples Yellow is? Because they were all over the place, insane. The St. Remy Yellow is one that's just their own creation of paint. Now, the cool thing about this This has PY35 in it, which was what? What? This is actually wrong on our website, so we're catching a tube has cadmium yellow in it, Katie. And that's why I could not figure out why.
So it's very curious.
It said Hansa Brilliant Yellow. That does not look like a Hansa Yellow. But I was like, okay, maybe it's just one that I've never seen before. Look at how pretty is that. It's like a beautiful buttercream color. What would this color be good? Everybody's going, okay, I can make that with yellow and white. You probably could, and we can try. But it depends on whatever the cadmium yellow is that they're using. Who knows what it is? It's not super orange, but it's not super green, so I would assume it's a medium. This is a perfect color for sunlight, like on a water. Okay, if you want it to read as warmth, you don't just use white. White looks, depending on the white you're using, looks very cool. This would read as something warm on the water. It's very subtle. It's got just enough yellow where you can see it and appreciate it, and it looks just like really warm, enjoyable sunshine. So this is a color I really love in oils and acrylics because it's just a very nice, soft, muted color. With titanium white and that. And I say we try to mix that in just a little bit because that would be kind of cool to see if we maybe come close. Mad scientist. All right.
We just went there. It's like
I need the crazy hair.
online artistic chemistry.
Right. I need the crazy hair from that one show we did. My Einstein hair.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we'll do these at the same time because these are the exact same formulation. Titanium white. PY42. Anybody guess? Anybody? The delay is too long, so we can't wait for that. But it is a yellow ochre pigment. Okay, a yellow iron oxide. Yellow ochre can be PY42 or PY43. They're a little bit different, and it all depends on the heat treating of those. Talk about a color that it's the same pigment in 9,000 different colors, and it never looks the same. This is the regular Naples Yellow. And 74, remember our little friend that we started with in that lemon yellow, right? Keeps popping up. Okay, nice. Oh, I've got a lot more water in that brush than I thought I did. But it's a nice, pretty kind of, it'd be good for highlights on sand, right? In portraits where you, if you're doing Caucasian flesh, in portraits for a highlight as opposed to doing white, don't do white. It looks weird. Okay, it's a nice. It's got a little bit of kind of, because thanks to the yellow oxide in it, it's got a little bit of kind of almost like a tiny slip of orange in there. And then let's look at the deep.
Pretty.
Isn't it?
Pretty.
Now deep, I always think of it just be, this is not necessarily, it is a little bit warmer. This holds more as a light orange to me than this does, even though those are the same formulation. Where this is much more kind of the yellowness of it. But again, how the difference in that heat treating of the yellow iron oxide is, it changes a lot. You know, if you were doing, say, for the Naples Yellow Deep, like a landscape, and it's a little bit of the shade of day, like on something like a Southwest rock scene or something like that, and you want something on it that doesn't have that horrible glare where it's a little bit softer, you could use this instead of, you know, your super bright either whites or a little bit off. even kind of at the edge of some shadows, just because it's more muted. You can use it for all sorts. This Naples Yellow Deep and Prussian Blue, I don't even know how many paintings I did. When we went to Michigan, I visited my old college roommate who had one of the series of emu paintings. You know how we've talked about those through the years because Mike's scared of them, so we talk about them a lot. She has one of them, and it is the Prussian Blue and Naples Yellow. And I was like, oh my gosh, there he is. I didn't know that it existed anymore. I'd lost track of it, and I'd forgotten that I'd given it to her. But it was from that era. All right. So this is the color that we've got in here. Okay, the yellow iron oxide. Or yellow ochre. And we're going to talk about that. Look at that nice, beautiful opacity to that. You can really see the opacity in the label there. You can barely even see the name. See how that's kind of, it's almost like an orangey yellow brown, right?
That's pretty.
It's very pretty. Okay, so this pigment, the PY42, this is where it gets confusing, and this is why you really want to see color swatches or samples, not just go by pigment alone for this color, because it can mean multiple things. Because the pigment's known as golden ochre, light ochre, Mars yellow of all shades and ranges, Mars orange, orange oxide, raw siennas, all shade ranges, transparent yellow oxides, yellow ochre, all shade ranges, based on the color hue as to what it's labeled. Okay, so the redder looking it is, the more towards the red and orange hues is going to be your Mars and stuff like that, or even kind of a almost closer to like an iron oxide looking red even before you start getting into the PR 101. If it's the raw siennas and stuff, it's going to be more brown. It's just, you want to be careful with this color. You want it to be, depending on what it's called, is going to give you an idea of what it looks like. Yellow ochre to me always pretty much looks like this. If you do the golden ochre, it's going to be lighter and more kind of yellowy gold. Okay? It's synthetic hydrated ferric oxide, iron oxide monohydrate, or hydrated iron oxide, which all sounds like the same thing to me, but apparently it's not. So, which is yet another reason why they were wise not to let me do chemistry class and blow up the building. That and my poor math skills. So, opacity can range from transparent to opaque with this pigment. Here's your opaque one. If you want an opaque one, Charvin's got it. That's like the easiest nitty gritty thing. Now, yellow ochre is a great color for toning down the vibrancy of a color. You just add a tiny little bit. I don't like it as a color. I use it all the time just to knock the heat out of a color. Just a dab will do ya. Okay? Staining with medium tinting strength, and you can kind of see that going across there. All right, and a light fastness of 1. So this is like excellent light fastness. So good color for that. All right. Then we've got, see where we're at here. Savannah. And this is a color that we like a lot, don't we, Katie? Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize how easy it was to make until I looked at this. And then I was like, oh, so easy. All right. It's got this in it, it's got white in it, and it's got a little bit of Mars black in it. So let's look at it, and then Amanda's awesome. She left this open in the middle. So we're going to try and make the Savannah first, I think. What do you think? Yeah. Beautiful putty color. I never thought I would say that a putty color was beautiful. It's just such a nice neutral. Again, huh?
It really is.
It's
so pretty.
just really nice. Just such a nice kind of neutral, super neutral color. super great for shadows and things. Just, it's a really great color. But titanium white, that yellow ochre, and Mars black, it's got great light fastness because it's all the things that are super light fast, right? Okay, so I want you to see what the Mars black looks like on its own. Now, Mars black, PBK means black. PB means blue. So just, this is a very, this pigment can be different with different brands. It can be sometimes more of a really blue-gray to a little bit more reddish. It just depends. I find there is very much more a red undertone, and then I'm going to move it up from the Jerry's thing. It's probably going to be hard to see, but I can kind of see it up close where I've made it super thin. It definitely has more of a kind of a red, or almost a little bit of a red violet, very minor undertone, which is why I think this is such a successful color. If this was more blue, that would definitely not work. You can kind of see that redness in there with that. So Mars black is, you see it in watercolors as like the lunar black in the Daniel Smith watercolors. You know how everybody loves that lunar black, because it's a very, and I can see it in where I've made it thin. You can see the pigment particles settling in the texture of the canvas panel. It's got larger particulate, so I think it helps as a mixing color because it just makes it so it's down in there. You don't really notice it, right? You just see little hints of it with kind of how that helps with kind of graying that color down. And then obviously titanium white is our no, that's fine. Hopefully it's working. right. We're not sure what that technical glitch was. We're sorry about that, guys. I think we're back. All right. I don't remember what I was saying. It was probably about titanium white, but if you've been watching our show ever before, it's the punch you in the face white, and we talk about it a lot. So, all right. So questions. I'm going to have people start asking questions, or if there's questions that the girls have had. Ow, that is going to catch my hair. And while I'm going to try just to, actually first let's do some of these colors with a little bit of the black so people can see that it can make some nice little greens. I think some of this is still wet enough where we can kind of do it. Just holler when you get some. Right, I'm just touching this, just like teeny tiny bit. That makes kind of a nice, ooh, just put my hand in the titanium white. A little bit of a gray there. Let's try it with the Naples. We're just gonna see what some of this can do. This is already starting to set up.
I know, I did it again. Hang tight, one second, Amy.
Did it?
It may have just disconnected from.
Do we keep going for YouTube?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the YouTube chat's still going.
All right.
It must still be-
I think YouTube's still going, so we're gonna keep going, guys. All right. With the Naples Yellow Deep. That makes a little bit of a kind of a grayed yellow. Let's try with the bright colors that we've got, the bright yellows. All right. Now some of these we may have to just add a little bit of color because I don't know if we're going to be able to have it wet at all. There we've got a green. See that kind of almost like a pea green or an olive green. Let's see if I can pull that up and just. Sorry guys about the, I'm not sure what's going on with the
It should be back, but you just, if you're on Facebook or you're going back to Facebook, you may have to go back to our page. It started as like a second live stream.
yeah.
The internet must have dropped off or something.
Probably.
It was weird. I've never had that. 165 shows and I've never had that one
Right?
happen.
No. We've had the power go out and other things, but not. All right. See how these are making some nice kind of, look at that green. That's that French primary. Isn't that a nice green?
Is that just the
It's
Mars-
just with a little bit of the Mars black.
Mars black?
Just that little bit. I'm just touching it. See how tiny that is? Okay, so let's try it with, I don't want to get that. There's a nice little blob here. I mean, look, that is a nice, you can make it dark, you can pick up a little bit more, make it lighter. Imagine you could put a little bit of white in there and lighten it up. That is a nice little green. Let's see what it does with the orange, or the Cad Yellow Deep, because that's very orange. Curious to see what that'll. Obviously that's not going to be, it's actually kind of, looks like a little bit of a, it's nice. It's almost like a sienna color. Look at that. Nice little earth tone out of just that Cad Yellow Deep hue. Can they see that, do you think? I'm gonna go along like the game.
You need to do maps so they can see all of them?
That might be good. See how we've got all sorts of different yellows? See, that's, or the greens, that's a nice, like a lighter green. Obviously the French one's a little darker, and I've probably put a little bit more black into it. Let's get this and make this one here. So you can get some nice greens with just a black. I really like this. The cadmium yellow light makes a really nice. Oh, let's see what it does with the chartreuse. I don't expect that's going to be much more than greenier, but it might make a nice shade. Yeah, that's a very nice shade. Look at that. All right, so let's try making the Savannah, since we know what those things are in it that we need. And just start hollering questions. And I think I'm gonna grab a brush.
I did have one question a while back before.
Okay.
All the chaos. Let me see if I
All the
can find
All the crazy.
it. It was regarding finishes. Here we go.
Okay.
If the finish, I'm trying to find it. Here we go. Do certain finishes impact the quality when mixing colors, i.e. metallic, pearlescent, etc.?
Yes, because anytime you're adding those are a mica flake. If you've got metallics and pearlescents and things like that, their brilliance comes from the suspension of the particles, the larger particles in that clear resin. So when you take pigments that are much smaller and you mix them in, you're going to have a lot less light refraction for your shiny stuff. Like if you did not see, what episode was it that we did with them from Royal Talons recently? It's been a couple episodes back. They featured pearlescent paint, and they actually added some primary colors in with those pearlescents, because there's a red pearlescent, a yellow pearlescent, and a blue pearlescent that are kind of like almost like an interference color. So you could really see that it took a lot of the kind of shine. It softened the colors, the primaries, but it took a lot of the shine out, but it gave it just kind of a nice, pretty glow. Let's see, I need my yellow ochre. So that's something that you're going to need to, you want to practice on that before you just start. I mean, the beauty of acrylic is you could put it on the work and then you could just cover it up if you don't like it, right? But that is something to practice with on some sheets. Like, remember how Ophelia was showing us the other day how she's practiced? All right, so we're taking mostly white. Thank you. I'm gonna take a little bit of this. I do this because I don't mix with palette knives when I paint. See how that's a really nice little kind of color there. Let's take a touch of that black. Oh, we're getting close. I feel like we're getting close. Look. Ta-da! See? It's there. This might have just a touch more. Yeah. Just a touch more in it. But you can see that's pretty good compared to pretty close. So because I know those pigment numbers, in adding that little bit more, it's a little more yellow, but down here that matches that perfectly. So cracked the code on this color that Katie and I love. Titanium white, a little bit of the yellow ochre, the PY42, a little bit of that Mars black, and I can make that color all day long, but then still have these other colors to use without, you know, and do you have to do that? No. If you go through this color like crazy, it may be a pain in the butt to sit and have to mix it. However, we've all been there where we've had a huge like crimp in our paint budget. You need the paint, you need to work, but you don't have money for all these extra tubes, right? So that's why this is really important to kind of unlock these codes and have to learn all this gobbledygook that's going to bounce around in your head until one day there's that aha moment, this can actually help save you money. It can help save you frustration if you understand the cool and the warm sides of colors so that you make better choices with mixing, you waste less paint, you make your dollars really count when you are making purchases. Sorry, that was streaky. That's why I don't like palette knives. It's too streaky compared to a brush. Questions? Do we have any other questions? And again, sorry we've had that weird glitchy blip in and out.
No, what happened? No idea
No.
what happened. What's a new one?
It's 2020. That's what
Yeah,
happened.
right.
It's just,
2020.
it seems like
I did
Good
have
enough answer.
somebody who was asking, and you might have mentioned this when I was still running around trying to get the other thing fixed. Let me go back and find it. About
Mhm.
a good warm green for landscapes, like what your favorite would be, or warm yellow. Hopefully, it's gonna get the actual wording for it.
I feel like there should be game show music. There should be. All right, did you find it?
Listed in the
Okay,
the
while she's
list. I'm
searching,
sorry.
while she's searching, I'm going to remind you that in 2 weeks, we are going to do a fun timed drawing event. You were really guilted into doing this since it's going to be my birthday, and it's a really big one, and I don't want to say what it is, but it's 50. So, and I'm struggling with it a little, and I just have sent one kid off to grad school, and another one is getting ready to go off to the military. So, you should really feel sorry for me and come and do the time drawing event because it'll make me feel better. So that will be September 8th. You just need a sketchbook and pencils. Did you find it? Was that enough stall?
Yeah, it was which one makes a warm green for a landscape when you're adding what your favorite would be for the warm. 'Cause
A
I've got couple
warm
of colors, like what your
green.
favorite. That was one like a warm. What one would make the best warm green for like a landscape? One was what would be your most primary yellow if you were gonna pick one of all of those.
If you're picking just a primary yellow, we'll address that first. You really just want one that says yellow primary, French yellow primary, whatever. And keep in mind, Charvin's from France, so French yellow primary, is just their thing. But other companies call it that as well. You want a just mid-tone, a cadmium medium, okay? Or if it doesn't say light or dark or deep, and it says cadmium, it's just cadmium yellow. That is a medium. It's when it says light or when it says deep that those are your cues as to whether it's light, greener, dark, or deep, that it's redder, okay? So anything in that mid-range, if you can only get one yellow, you want something that's like a French yellow primary or a yellow primary, because that's going to be the closest to kind of trying to have a good yellow for both your greens, both of your oranges. Now the other one was they wanted to know what would be a good
Like a warm yellow green.
Oh,
Maybe.
okay. A warm yellow green. So that is going to be what you're what you're really going to look for. That's something that's starting to get hard to mix, and is why you're going to want to try these swatches. Try them with a little white, try them with a little black. Experiment. It's great to do a notebook because you only have to, mix with the tip of a paintbrush, so you're mixing little tiny blobs as you do it. But something like some brands of sap green are going to be your best warm green, meaning a redder green, depending on the brand. And sadly, depending on the medium, because sap green to me in acrylic doesn't look a darn thing like a sap green in oils does. Just because that difference in the binder of it. Okay, so it's going to be harder to mix a true believable green that is a warm green, a reddish green. So you really want to look at some of those like sap green. There there's a few of the Hooker's greens in acrylic that can tend to be a little warmer. Just, really, most of the color charts from all the manufacturers are on the product page itself. So if you're looking at golden, there should be a color chart for you to click on and expand and be able to look at. Most of them they're on there for Charvin, because that's one of our proprietary brands. So look at those charts before you just consider that swatch is probably the right thing, because then you've got all those colors right in front of you like this on that chart, so you can say, oh wait, that's really not what I thought it was. Because sometimes when you just look at that one color and then it's got a color above it and a color under it, sometimes that can start confusing. You tend to sometimes want to mix things in your head. So pop open a color chart. That'll help a little bit more. And then, either select that way or experiment with colors that you have and with mixing. You might find something that you're like, how did I not even realize that all this time? Sitting right here in front of me, But yeah, if it was me and I wanted a warmer green, it would be a sap green.
And then along that lines as well, what about a transparent yellow?
In acrylics, a transparent yellow is probably going to be, the Hansas are always really transparent. And some of them will say, there's some Hansas that are opaque and some Hansas that it just doesn't say, and then some that actually say transparent. And it's that way with a lot of them. Charvin's line has a good bit of yellows. A brand like Golden's got like that on speed, like way more other yellows. No, it's got bismuth yellows. There's like 4 different bismuth yellows, because, and the only reason I'm saying this is because Turner's developing a new acrylic. We've been developing it with them. And we've been looking at colors from all sorts of different brands. And I just had never been as aware of all the different acrylic yellows without like really studying the brands like I have been, that I was like, what? So if it says transparent on there and it's yellow, that's going to be your transparent yellow. But Hansa is typically your kind of big one. Some of the Azos as well are going to be. And if it says transparent or semi-transparent is going to work pretty darn close, because transparent sounds great if you're mixing. It's not great if you need to layer to get a really bold yellow and you can see everything underneath.
And then one more,
Sure.
maybe. What would be the difference in the ivory black versus the Mars black? Would the ivory black do the same thing?
Black, just because it says black, doesn't mean that undertone and that it mixes the same is going to be the same. Just like we looked at some of these yellows, cadmium yellow doesn't mean that it's the same across the board, right? There's all sorts of variations. And it depends on how the black is processed for an ivory black as to whether it's going to be warmer and whether it's going to be cooler, because it does vary by brand. Okay, so you want to play with those blacks. The best way you can test colors, and with this new acrylic color testing that we're doing, we get the colors like this. We're doing what's called a mass tone. Okay, so we've taken that color, we've spread it out thick, so you're seeing the color in a nice thick form. So what the mass tone of that looks like. Then I'm doing a brush stroke, so I'm seeing what one pull of a brush stroke looks like. When I do this for testing, I'll have, let's see if any of these has not white underneath it. If this is my page for my color that I'm mixing, I'll have the name up here. I'll have the pigment numbers there. I will do that mass tone. First, I put a big black line with a Sharpie or an alcohol marker under it, okay? Because I'll do that mass tone over it. I'll do the one stroke, and then I will mix it 50-50 with titanium white. Because then, where we're talking about tinting strength, this color, it has strong tinting strength. This color has weak tinting strength. That's saying I've added it to white. Does it not change a whole lot? There's some blacks that barely change, right? It becomes a very dark gray with 50% white. There's some that are very weak that all of a sudden are very pale. Okay, so that is an easy way to teach you what is the tinting strength of this particular brand I have. Because consider, what if you have a professional grade? What if you have a student grade? Okay, those are going to perform very differently, even if it's the same manufacturer and they're using the same pigment. The student grade will be weaker because it's not as heavy with pigment. Then what you can do is add a little bit of black like I did here. It's like maybe just a little touch of black, just to see what it does when you add that in. That still doesn't mean you don't need to test this with your whites and with your blacks. And the best thing you can do with blacks to really see what is that undercolor, is it more blue? Mix it with 50% white. Is it more red? Mix it with 50% white. Is it weak? Is it strong? All of those things, mix it with 50% white, because it's going to give you that information. Yes, you're going to feel like you're wasting a lot of paint, but it's valuable knowledge that will save you so much time and effort and money. You might find that the black you've been using all this time really stinks for your purposes. It may just really be like, why were you using it? Because it looks black in mass tone, but then every time you do a tint with it, just like that. That's the black disappointment sound. Does that make sense? And I know we preach this a lot, but this is just, it's just like school. To get a good grade in life as an artist, you got to do your homework.
Well, learning this stuff makes everything else easier and work better and more enjoyable to paint with when you don't have to stop and think about this or figure out why things aren't working for you.
I don't, if I could have learned this information when I was a high schooler or a college student or right after college, and not have fumbled and bumbled across it and seen what other artists did and taken the bits and pieces that worked and built it into what I do when I do my own artwork, I would be so much further down the road than I am now. And that's fine. And because it's the process and it's the learning that's going to get me there. But I'm saying that you could be that much further along in color now if you're doing this type of stuff. Okay? Just think, I mean, Grandma Moses was how old when she finally started painting? We still have time, people. Let's use this time to work on this, okay? We've all taken time off with kids or jobs or all sorts of stuff and might just be getting back on track, and it's okay. It's what you do from here that's going to count. And this homework is a necessary part of it counting. And that being said, we've got winners. Huh?
I said also it's fun and stress relieving.
It is, yeah. If you best practice for artistic roadblock.
Yeah.
Best practice. Okay. And that being said, about colors and things like that, and we've had shows on composition, there is nowhere than abstract that a really good handle on color or composition is going to show more, or an absolute lack thereof is going to show even more. So we did a contest. It was our art at home contest. It was for abstracts this week. And there were some great works. And I just want to remind people, at first, I don't think a lot of people got what the true definition of abstract is. If it's obvious it's a figure, it's a figurative work. It's just not a, super realist figurative work. If it's stuff where you can kind of tell what some of the things are, maybe it's more surreal, because there was a lot of surreal artwork, I felt like. Didn't you see a lot of artwork that I would have classified as surrealist? Yeah. Or even a little Dadaist. But then there were some really spectacular examples. And the winners that I'm going to show you were spectacular examples of where color and composition is, if you don't have a good handle on composition, do not do abstract artwork. I'm here to tell you now, because it's going to show up more so there than anywhere else. All right. So we've got winners, and I'm going to move this up so you can show it from, I think that'd be easier, don't you?
Yep.
Okay. So number 3, and I want to know how big this is, and I feel like maybe this got cut off a little bit with the printer. I want to know how big this is. And I'm guessing it's oils, but the underpainting to this was just spectacular. We can see so many layers of color, and it just, this painting, just even though it's kind of dark, it's very moody. I just love it. Erica Johnson of Gulfport, Mississippi, you were our 3rd place winner for the Art at Home Challenge this week. Congratulations. Please let us know what the size of this is and what the medium is, because I just loved it. Then we've got McLean Percy of Chapel Hill, North Carolina. How have we not met McLean? Because I feel like I want to now.
Yeah.
'Cause look at this. Okay, and I did not even think about this when I was picking these. Look at the color, how it matches what we've been talking about today with all these yellows, Katie. This is just spectacular. This is our 2nd place winner. And again, I want to know what this is, because it was like, in looking at it, it was like, is it maybe a little bit of caustics? Is it acrylic? What is it? There's body to it, so I want to know what it is. All right. And 1st place. I want to know how big this one is too. This does not translate as well as on your computer screen, so make sure you go back in just the whole gallery of these and look at these. There were some other just really incredible ones, but using white and getting the nuances of color, this was just, there's kind of some warmth under it that you can't see I can't see on my monitor, but when I was looking at it online, it just, so like a warm and cool side. It's just spectacular. Cameron Hampton of Grovetown, Georgia. There were 1,010 entries.
Isn't that crazy?
For this. And I don't even know how I got through them that fast. So, congratulations to you guys. You will be getting some Jerry's Artarama e-gift cards. Use them wisely and enjoy them. So, next week is Catitude.
Yes.
Is
cats
that-
with attitude?
Cats with
We
attitude,
did
which
dogs.
is the definition of a cat, isn't it? I mean, really? So that's what it is next week. So break out all those cat portraits you've got. Also, something I noticed this time, there were a lot of watermarks on artwork. It made it very difficult to see, guys. I encourage you to not put the watermarks on it, because it's not high enough resolution where anybody's going to steal it. Also, crop your artwork. A lot of floating artworks where there's frames or a chair behind it or whatever, it's very hard to focus on your artwork and see it at a lower resolution if I can't blow it up. And it looks messy when we would show it. So those are tickets where if you've got a really good artwork, it's going to make it really great and much more viable for winning a prize with the contest. So just Amy's words of additional wisdom. Next week, we are doing charcoal and or graphite dust. How you use those. That's a product that a lot of people have seen. They don't know a lot about. They're afraid of the mess factor, which I understand that. But we're going to show how you can use those in your graphite and charcoal pencil drawing to really enhance them, just even save you some time. You don't have to do as much work with the pencil if you can work with some of the values with powder and brush. So that will be next week. And again, the week after, the timed drawing fun game. So that's what we've got.
Up there, if they want to put the JL167 in the
Awesome.
website, so they
Okay.
can order it if they'd like.
So yes, so you've got time. It's 2 weeks out. So JL167 is the cart code for that, for the products for the fun timed drawing episode. Okay. So you guys take care of yourselves. Stay safe. Thanks for sticking with us with whatever glitchy weird stuff we had and with last week. And we'll see you next Tuesday. Bye-bye.